Hey, what's up, everyone? So yesterday I started practicing for the no-hit run, that which is when you do the original scripture, which gives you the original sin ring if you successfully complete the whole run. And I modified my build quite a bit to be able to do it. And actually, for just generally running the Sanctum as quickly as possible. And in fact, I'm probably going to keep my build like this for a while as I continue practicing. I'm really not confident doing this, doing the run yet. I'm a little nervous about it. I have done 2 1-hit runs and 2 2-hit runs so far. To modify my build to be able to do this run, literally defense does nothing, right? You could go in there with 1 HP and 0 defensive auras and everything, and you're just as good, right, defensively as anything else. You take 1 hit, you lose. And so I went on the very extreme end with my build to try to make it do the most damage humanly possible. You know, I just went full glass cannon, and actually I've backed off of that a little bit. So it's in this like middle ground. Like I don't even have capped res or anything. I haven't bothered with any of that. It's in this middle ground right now where I can like generally kind of run through a map quickly at least, because you want your character to still be able to spawn the Sanctum. You can't share the Sanctum spawns between characters. So you need your character to be able to at least transition into mapping a little bit and then going over to the Sanctum. And a couple of the things that I did yesterday might give you some ideas, especially if you're playing this build or if you're playing any build in general, just something that you can do to be able to run more Sanctums. You know, Sanctum to me is the most fun thing in the game right now, whether you're practicing for a no-hit run or you just want to go really quickly and, print those divines. So as you can see here, I got all 8 of these yesterday, which means I ran at least 224 maps, ran the maps, and just found the Eldritch Influence and the Sanctum and get out. I ran a ton of maps, and my character is currently doing about 30 million DPS. Let me quickly show you what 30 million DPS looks like on a Bane build even. So, I'm transitioning. Like as I'm mapping, I am not doing low life. And then when I go in here, I pop everything and go full DPS and I go low life. And this is a quick little demonstration of what that looks like. And dead. Obviously that configuration is not viable for mapping or like even actual bossing if they could actually get a single hit off on you. But it's pretty fun, taking a build that is more quality of life and just going full glass cannon with it. To start off with, what I would recommend, I very, very strongly recommend Captain Lance's video on how he set up his strategy to run Sanctum as quickly as possible. The very short of it is you want to favorite Atoll and Coves. Normally you do want all 4 Void Stones in here, but I dropped one because I want to do tier 14 maps because I'm going for the no-hit run. Now, it does have to be at least T14 for the no-hit run, but normally you would just go for T16 maps. You want to favorite Atoll and Coves. Pick your 2 quickest maps that you like. But especially Atoll, I find really, really fast for spawning the Sanctum. And then you very much want to do a Wandering Path setup. My tree is totally scuffed right here. This is not ideal. Ideally, I would have every single one of these additional map drop nodes, and I wouldn't have any of the big nodes here. But I am going between Wandering Path and not Wandering Path, if I feel like going over to like a regular farming strategy. So I'm just kind of leaving it half scuffed like this. But this is good enough. Like I am way over sustaining maps like this. Definitely just watch Captain Lance's video. The Atlas strategy he has, his Atlas strategy is, perfectly set up. This is just like a scuffed in between version. So yeah, you just take a scoured map right here. Atoll is like really, really good. The Sanctum is almost always right in the entrance. And then you want to kill monsters until you see the big blue like poof explosion. Right there. That poof explosion, I'm doing the blue altars. You would see a red one if it was the red altars. And then you just want to spawn your Sanctum, click on this little store Sanctum room for later, and portal out. And that's it. And then you can run your maps really, really quickly, just quick in and out. You can kill a couple extra monsters if you're running low on maps. They drop like absolute candy with a Wandering Path strat. And in fact, you can make money by dropping a ton of maps and just selling them, which is kind of great. And just with killing like that few monsters, like sometimes I'll do, like I said, a quick little circle. I am over sustaining my maps like this, and you can just sell them off for additional profit if you want to. So that's just like the spawning the Sanctum strategy, get that out of the way. Captain Lance's video goes into more detail. But what I really want to talk about is how I made this character like glass cannon, but modifiably glass cannon. This pertains specifically to spell builds that have access to Pain Attunement. So traditionally, if you wanted to go into low life, you'd do Shavs, you could do Petrified Blood, you'd want to still, have a character that doesn't die. But in the Sanctum, as long as your character doesn't die to 1 hit, you generally aren't going to get hit more than once. As long as you can kill the bosses really quickly and you never get hit by them, your character can go like pretty darn glass cannon. And so what I did is I am just using low life here, and I'm reserving an additional aura. I'm reserving Zealotry with Arrogant support right here. So when I'm regularly mapping, I can just like run around, you know, I still got over 6k life right here. I shouldn't like just fall over and die. I can take a couple little hits. But when I go into the Sanctum, as long as I don't die to one hit, I don't need any more life than that. So then I reserve my life, and yeah, I got a little bit over 2k life right here. That's enough to survive most single hits. If you're a little uncomfortable with that, you can use an aura that reserves a little bit less. As long as you reserve at least 50%, then you will be activating Pain Attunement and having that 30% more damage multiplier. So yeah, if you just look at my paper DPS right here, it says 1.5 million chaos damage per second with Soul Rend. And if I cast Zealotry, which will activate both the 20% more damage from Zealotry and the 30% more damage. So two more multipliers, more on the character. And that gives me 2.49 million DPS. And then when I activate Arcane Surge, that puts me up to 2.74 million paper DPS with Soul Rend, which is pretty incredible, right? If we look at Soul Rend by itself here with all of my buffs, Soul Rend by itself is doing 16.6 million DPS. And with the on-hit damage, it's doing 19.7 million DPS, just Soul Rend. And then if we just look at Bane, just Bane by itself, it's doing 5.2 million DPS. So as I'm running around and just killing the regular monsters, that's enough to kill them within about a second. Now, for doing a no-hit run, this is sub-ideal. Honestly, I'm not like super comfortable about doing this for a no-hit run, but in terms of being able to do a regular run, it feels really, really good. I very strongly prefer this configuration over the default one, just to kill everything really quickly and go quickly. Speaking of going quickly, the other thing that I did, I'm using Haste Aura right here. You know, since I have so much increased effect of auras on my character, this has given me a ton of movement speed, attack, cast speed. Just feels really good, especially, you know, my mobility is a combination of attacking and casting. It just feels really, really nice actually to have Haste. Like to the point where I'm kind of just like leaning to having Haste on all the time, just for general comfort. And then you'll see I have these crappy little boots. What I did is, you'll see my normal boots right here, you know, nice and tanky, spell suppression, life, all that type of stuff. What I did is I bought a pair of boots that for 1 chaos that had the movement speed if you haven't been hit recently. And then I hit it with, I think it was 2 or 3 veiled chaos orbs, which are about 8 chaos per, until I unveiled 30% increased movement speed and 12% increased movement speed if you haven't been hit recently. I actually unveiled it, you know, one time prior, but it was low rolled. And, you know, instead of using a divine to try to reroll it, just use another veiled chaos orb. The whole purpose of these boots is just to go faster. I also rolled, you know, just lesser currency, cost, you know, 1/3 of a chaos each, cooldown recovery rate and action speed, just so I can go faster. We don't care about life. We don't care about res. As long as we don't die to one hit when we're in the Sanctum, these are good enough. And they really enable us to go really, really, really fast. On top of that, I'm also using a silver flask. Take a look here. When I pop on my flask, I have 166% movement speed. I'm zippy, man. I'm like full headhunter bow build really, really fast. If you really want to go fast and you don't mind losing a little bit of damage, you could also use the Onslaught helmet that has nothing else on it, just has the one-line Onslaught. The Thrill Steel right here, this guy. You can just buy one of these. They're not particularly expensive, and you know, you're going to give up any damage mods or anything else that you have on your character, but just always having Onslaught can be really, really good for, you know, just going fast in the Sanctum. And then you could use a different flask if you wanted to. But yeah, I'm just using a silver flask, and that's good enough for me. I get a lot of damage from my helmet, so I don't really want to give that up. And then in terms of the tree, I'll upload the POB with this video. Basically, I had taken off every single life point. I actually backed off a little bit. I went a little bit too hard to the point where my character only had like 2k life when I was mapping, and that wasn't enough. But I did drop a lot of like the general defensive nodes that weren't doing that much for my character, right? Like spell suppression, a little bit of like AoE and damage. Revenge of the Hunted here was a little bit more life and evasion, but there was a travel point. I did drop that one. And just that, I went up here, Prodigal Perfection. This gives me 40% increased damage. Ward Slinger, this works for anything. You don't have to be attacking. These 5 points right here give me 94% increased damage, which is pretty insane. If you are in this area and you're wielding a wand, I highly recommend doing this. If you can get up to 2,000 mana, that's another 40% increased damage right there. That's actually exactly what I'm using Deep Thoughts for here, to go over that 20% damage. And it just makes mana a little bit more comfortable while I'm here. And then I went over to Acrimony and Dot Multi if you've killed recently, why not? This is one of the highest value for points damage nodes on the passive tree for this build, but it's just really uncomfortable to go for generally. But if I don't care about life, we can do that. The other thing that you'll notice is I'm using a Flame Golem. I'm actually very specifically using Anomalous Summon Flame Golem that increases the buff effect. And in fact, I actually got to quality this guy up. I did forget to do that. This has 20% increased buff effect, so that's another 4% increased damage. So the Flame Golem here is giving me 24% increased damage, which is just, if you got an extra slot, why not use it? It's not really a big deal, though. It doesn't do too much for us. I am considering going to a Lightning Golem instead, just for a little bit more speed, but the damage is nice. One thing that people have mentioned is using Skitterbots with Unbound Ailment support. I was going back and forth in my runs yesterday, going between using Zealotry as my Arrogance support here or Skitterbots. The nice thing about Skitterbots is since they reserve so much less, I'm actually like right at the breakpoint of 50%. And so I'm a little bit less squishy, in case if I'm not doing a no-hit run, I can actually survive. If I do really mess up, I can survive a couple hits with Skitterbots instead. I actually think for me, the value of Skitterbots is dramatically overstated. I don't know if you can give them like Predator support or something to make them more aggressive, but I found that they were generally very, very defensive. And if there was a monster anywhere, like if it was behind a wall or just like off, like slightly off screen, the Skitterbots wouldn't go to them. So like basically, unless I was already melee range on the monster, the Skitterbots wouldn't be affecting them. And especially since I'm using Wither stacks and so much increased damage taken, the shock does almost nothing. The chill is really nice when it affects them, but the Skitterbots were just not aggressive enough. And so I found them kind of low value. But if you're low damage and you're struggling to kill monsters and you don't have increased damage taken anywhere else, they can be a really nice additional aura. This could be your Arrogance aura if you can't think of any additional increased damage. All right, didn't want to go too long today. Just wanted to share with you guys kind of the changes that I made yesterday that really made running Sanctums a lot more comfortable. My number one thing that I want right now is give me at least 32 rooms that I can store. Going between running maps quickly, and then you go in the Sanctum. Like, I do all sorts of things. Like, I change my gamma so I can see things a lot better when I'm in there. I'm changing my auras, stuff like that. And it's always like, I was doing a lot of gem swaps before because I was swapping out like Hex Bloom. I was turning off Herald of Ash, turning on Zealotry, like really changing things around every 8 maps when I went into the Sanctum. And with this configuration, all I do is I turn on and off Zealotry to activate that low life and get the Zealotry more damage, which makes it a lot easier to just transition in and out. I would absolutely love if we could store 32 maps. That would go a long way to making this a lot more comfortable. But yeah, hopefully this gives you guys some ideas. If you want to just run more Sanctums like I do, consider playing around with your character a little bit like this. If you're playing Bane, you could just copy paste this and, just get that damage really, really high, run around super, super fast, and just have fun running through the Sanctum and having a great time in 3.20. So yeah, thanks for watching. I'll see y'all tomorrow. Goodbye.